Hello, Emmett.
Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good.
I just need to adjust my screen here because I seem to have got some crazy stuff going on my hair. If I push it forward, then I've got a proper Billy Boo font. There we go. That's better. Just adjust this. Please excuse your ears, audience members, while I just move this down a little bit. There we go. We're all good. We're all good. How are you? How's your week been?
Yeah, really, really strong. Yeah, good, busy.
Excellent.
Which is great. What about you?
Yeah, fantastic. Actually, it feels feels like some sort of sense of normality. I feel sorry for our kind of brothers and sisters in the UK that are kind of moving into an extended lockdown.
Yeah.
And it do find it difficult to fathom at some point, especially now because things like what do you call it? Furlough is kind of being pulled back, and seems like business is progressing, but real life isn't, which is always a challenge, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of rights itself. But here in the region, it seems as though kind of travel's being a bit more relaxed. They're starting to roll out the kind of more usage of vaccinated application.
Mm-hmm.
So access to certain parts, and even to fly to other countries, there's certain restrictions on individuals landing in different countries. So for example, going into Saudi now, I've heard that if you've got the vaccination, you're okay. You can kind of quarantine for 2 days. If you don't, it's quarantine for 10 days in a government facility. So the challenge, I think, at the moment is everyone's still trying to find their feet. But yeah, on all positive, I'd say.
No, for sure. I think, and look, I think you can see, I mean, again, we're always looking at the roads when we're sitting
That's
here.
right, yeah.
And it's busy, right? I mean, there's a lot going on here. So, no, it's exciting. I think there's seems to be, I mean, I think we're getting closer and closer to that kind of light at the end of this long tunnel that's lasted, 16, 17 months
Yeah,
now?
it's crazy, right? It's utter chaos and madness that's been on that. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. But look, there's a few more people dropping in now. So welcome to the Growth Show, everyone. For those of you who do know what it is, welcome back. For new listeners and new viewers, welcome. This is our kind of weekly take on anything that really kind of finds interest, really. And obviously, we are on the last part of our deep dive today as well, Amit. The last industry, and we'll kind of touch in that, but it's we're talking financial advisors, right? Later on when we did a deep dive, but prior to that, we've kind of bit of a bounce around in the news, right, and seen what's kind of caught our eye this week. So do you want me to kick off, or do you want to kick off?
No, go ahead.
So look, in line with the vaccination, kind of what we're just talking about, there's a couple of things so locally now, just down the road in Abu Dhabi, you're having to provide your vaccination proof, as it were, through the application here called Ahosan. So to gain access to malls, coffee shops, hotels, etc., they've got these terminals where you scan a QR code and effectively you're allowed in if you've been vaccinated. I'm not sure what they're doing with visitors or tourists at the moment. But I thought what was interesting is, the incentive associated to that. So we spoke about this a few weeks, or probably about a month ago, where we heard that a few restaurants here were offering discounts based on if you had, got your vaccine and things like that. It seems like in the States, it's like pretty much on steroids. So Verizon now have got offers on their kit, basically. Right. So if you're vaccinated, things like AirPods Pros, a 10% discounts, handsets, iPads, they're basically incentivizing you to get vaccinated.
Really?
And by getting vaccinated, you get a discount, right, on some of your products, which I thought was, I don't know how you feel about this. Is it kind of big tech trying to jump on a bandwagon, or is it them being a bit too involved, or is it? How do you feel about it?
I think you've got to break it down a little bit, right? So let's talk about the fact that you've got to show people that you're vaccinated in order to get stuff. I mean, look, for me, it's fine.
Oh yeah.
I've probably had more vaccines than anyone as we currently stand.
You do seem to be collecting them, yeah.
I have, I've literally had 4. So, but anyway,
top trumps in vaccines, there, mate.
Yeah, but I think do I have an issue with? For me, no. But again, you got your anti-vaxxers out there, right? And there seems to be a consistent theme in terms of what demographic of people these guys are, which kind of and again, these are very much for guys who are suspicious about everything.
Yeah.
And so the fact that if you have to kind of, scan a QR code that shows you're vaccinated before you enter any kind of venue or outlet or anything like that, they're going to be dead against that, right? This is now what freedom of movement,
civil liberties.
I mean, it's I don't have to tell you where I'm going.
Exactly.
And I don't even know if they I suppose they probably will care about, if they're paying more for a set of iPods or whatever it is.
What? So civil liberties go out the window when I get a discount? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah. I just think it's interesting. I think I would never have drawn a line between vaccination and discounts 6 months ago. Right.
Yes.
You wouldn't have done it, right? It's okay. Look, we've got to get vaccinated. It's kind of, it's vaccinated. It's good for humanity, and you're protecting yourself. And, and I think all of those elements with it, but it has got to the point now where actually it's an expectation. If you're any kind of, if you're out there in public, people expect you to be vaccinated, and if you're not, I think that's causing more problems than anything else at the moment. Because I've physically seen people get annoyed at people because they're sat in the same room and haven't been vaccinated.
I think it almost, I think it goes back to that educational piece, right? Now, if you're familiar with the vaccination program and we are as well, growing up in the UK, obviously being British, vaccinated against measles, TB, the list, obviously measles and all of these kind of diseases, polio that thankfully we've almost eradicated, right? So we understand and appreciate that the idea of a vaccine should be that you don't catch it. Right. Yeah. It's not that you catch it and have a bit of a cough and crack on, just had a bit of those measles last week. It's like you're vaccinated against it. And I think there's some of the confusion, right? Because I feel like some of the individuals that perhaps, who are kind of look at it, well, no, I'm healthy, I'm okay. It doesn't matter, I can get it. Well, it's not about that, right? It's about, spreading it and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I haven't had any kind of very serious conversations with people, but I think as time goes on, you've got to believe that you're going to be the minority, because essentially you're completely restricted in movement, right? And rightly so, right? Because why it's very selfish of you to kind of operate like that, unless you've got a medical reason, clearly, right? No one's saying that. But if it's just I don't want to, right? So stance just doesn't work for me. No,
I get it. And look, I quite like the idea that, to go back to that point, I like the idea that they are incentivizing people to get vaccinated, because, essentially that protects more people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and sometimes people need that.
Yeah, they need that extra push, right? Yeah. It's funny. I mean, when we talk with clients, no one wants to do anything for free.
Yeah.
So, if they want, I don't know, something very simple like write a review or do a testimonial or something like that, somebody wants something in exchange, right? Pay for play, as it were. So it's interesting how that whole kind of activity now is associated to vaccines.
Well, I think, look, a lot will change the second they say you can't go on holiday unless you're vaccinated.
Yes. Suddenly, very true.
Suddenly, even the biggest sort of, conspiracy theorists out there will be like, I might just get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
unless you're in Texas and you don't leave the state, even. I met people in Houston that hadn't left. I met people in Sugarland that hadn't left Sugarland ever. So I think there's some of that. Well, anything caught your eye this week?
There's been a couple of things. So we've been speaking about the basically what's going on with the big sort of tech companies, right? And in terms of, and I think it was only maybe even last week or the week before we said it's not going to be long before big tech's kind of broken up in the States, right?
Yes. Yeah. I think we were talking about Amazon, weren't we? And how they completely dominate so many parts of our life.
Yeah. And I think, just in the sense that I'm just going to pull it up here, but essentially, it's not just Amazon, right? So, when you look at these numbers, it's scary. So if you look at the valuation of Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google, just those four companies, what's their collective worth?
Well, Apple was first to touch $1 trillion, right? 3 trillion.
Right. So those four are worth 7 trillion, right? So you're talking about a significant something. I mean, it's huge, right? I mean, it's just kind of almost unthinkable. And so the the action that's being taken. So 5 bills have been drafted in the States.
Okay.
And I'm just, a couple of these I think are really interesting. But the first one is the Platform Monopolies Act. So they want to kind of almost end those kinds of monopolies. And what that essentially means is, anyone who's got a market cap of say over 600 billion or 50 million monthly users, it just means that essentially they'll clamp down on things like the Apple Store,
right?
Amazon's marketplace. I mean, like basically they'll clamp down on those and say, right, that needs to be kind of broken down. The second one, which I thought was really interesting, and we'll see how that plays out, is the American Choice and Innovation Online Act.
Yeah.
And this is very specific to certain companies, almost like picking on them and saying,
you've been targeted.
You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So the first one of these is like, for example, Google now can't place its reviews over a competitor like Yelp, right? So if you've got another review platform, Google can't say, well, our reviews are better or whatever.
Yeah.
Significant part of Google's revenue comes from, that type of information, right? Yeah. So that's interesting. And then the one that I know a lot of people are really kind of suspicious of is when dealing with Amazon, is the second Amazon use their data to identify a really hot selling product, it doesn't normally take them too long to potentially create their own version of it, at a significantly cheaper price, right? Yeah. And so they're going to clamp down on that as well. So so Amazon can't say, okay, great, that kind of light bulb or that clock is incredibly fast selling, and they can't then quickly produce their own. So this, I mean, these are very specific, right? I think it becomes quite.
Yeah, I mean,
quite interesting.
I feel like in two questions really. One, what's the impact of that outside of the US? So is this legislation that only really works in Google.com, right? And then two, I feel some of these, how do you qualify a competitor? So how do you say that Yelp and not 10 other review platforms are not viable or kind of in that space? Because essentially, I mean, Yelp and Foursquare and these guys that are in that pack have agreements with Google already. So it's kind of like, they're already partners in some sense in some of these platforms, right?
I think in some respects they are, but the point is when this is being regulated, they'll have to show that they're not doing it. Now, if those other platforms don't have as much information, or the quality of information perhaps isn't the same, that's Google's argument to then make, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it's a case of, okay, we've now got to showcase someone else just because we've been told to. I'm sure these guys will fight back.
You got to wonder if Google, kind of saw this coming with Alphabet, right?
Oh, I think so.
Just kind of like, hey, listen, we're not Google, right? We're Alphabet, and some of these are independent. Some of them are linked. This isn't connected to this. This is distant from this. I think they probably saw this coming, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And look, and your first question, how valid is it outside of the US? Well, a few days before this came out, there was that agreement again last week where you've got major international countries that have come out to combat their sort of tax,
evasion.
Well, I was avoidance.
Avoidance is the word.
Tax avoidance. Evasion is a little bit harsh, and
evasion is illegal. But avoidance is fine.
So we don't want to kind of get ourselves in trouble. But exactly that, right? And I think that's important because what that now means is that there's unity among some of the top revenue generating nations for these companies. And so whatever gets passed in the US, I think will kind of get filtered down to these countries as well. So the point is everyone's kind of tired of, I mean, look, you've got governments who must be annoyed that Amazon make more money than they do. Right? Amazon's worth more money than the country.
Small countries,
right?
Exactly.
And so you kind of look at that and say, essentially, if you look at a tax-paying, nation, where like the US, I mean, you look at their deficits, right? And yet, for all intents and purposes, they've got 330 million employees, right?
Yeah.
And yet Amazon still make more money than what they do, right? I mean, essentially they're losing money. Right? And this is, if you kind of, just even look at it in a very kind of high level, big picture perspective, that's got to be stopped, right?
Yeah, and it's the unfair competition thing, isn't it? Where, bricks and mortar are bound by taxes, regulations, whereas online environment is not bound by the same regulatory authority. So, yeah, the challenge is here that as it's very difficult now, I think, to kind of have that global view, right? As much as COVID has kind of brought us together in some sense, it may have pushed us apart. I mean, look at is it El Salvador that have just create Bitcoin, right, as currency, as legal tender, whereas you got parts of India going, no, we're going to shut down crypto. Then you've got kind of China creating their own crypto. I mean, it's just going to kind of go like this, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's based all through tech, right? Mainly. Yeah. Difficult to regulate.
Yeah,
because it moves. The problem is, any kind of regulation is usually traditionally is very slow because it has to go through process. Whereas in the tech world, things are fast, right? So as soon as you kind of regulate one thing, you've moved 3 doors down, right, as it were.
Yeah.
Look, in that sense, it kind of brings us on to my next story, which I think is scary for some people, right? And we spoke about this kind of low code, no code movement, and actually a lot of the hacks that we share on a weekly basis at the end of the show are around that, right? Where we've kind of done, creation of podcasts, automated captioning, all this kind of stuff, right? And I thought this was quite interesting because you kind of see that movement, but now Gartner have come out with a study, and they're saying that they're predicting that 80% of tech could be built outside of IT by 2024, thanks to low code. So that's only 3 years away.
So let's look at that. So that's basically saying that IT departments, 80% of IT departments won't be involved in building out technology or platforms for a company.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
And then we've witnessed it, in some of the HubSpot tools that we're using to build out sites. I think I was blown away right at the beginning of COVID. I kind of built out a couple of sites on Wix, and genuinely I was like, this is phenomenal. You can build out a website in a matter of minutes. Shopify, obviously, famously get you up and running in we spoke about Stripe the other week, getting a payment gateway up and running in under 10 minutes. I think this is kind of troublesome, really, and worrying for I think that space, right, from an IT perspective. If you're currently sitting in a role that is heavily reliant on tech, you've got to be kind of looking around and saying, well, hold on a minute. Do I either jump on this movement, right? And add value and kind of really get involved and showcase my skill set in that environment, or do I dig my heels in and kind of bury my face in the screen? And I think you can't do that, right? I mean, the writing's on the wall, right?
It's been on the wall for a long time.
I know. I'm remembering a meeting that we may have had 4 years ago, 5 years ago with our web team. This is coming kind of, moment. And there was a lot of, I think, burying my face in the screen at that point. But I don't
think they believed us. Though.
No, I don't think there was. No. But this is difficult to ignore, right? It really is.
Well, look, I think the thing is, you look at how industries have evolved, and IT has evolved. But there's still a lot of IT departments out there that haven't. Right. And a lot of it comes down to leadership of teams and things like that. And I think, you look at how long sort of cloud infrastructure has been out there, and you've still got companies, especially here where we are, who've got big server rooms. Right. Yeah. And not because the government says you need to have your own servers. No. It's because they don't know anything else.
That's right. Yeah.
And so, I don't really have much sympathy towards that industry as a whole.
No.
But I mean, they've had so much space to evolve into is the point, right? So you look at IT security, you look at data security, you look at all of those things. They could have easily, again, cloud infrastructure specialists, right? Yeah. This is where IT's moved to. If you're still out there thinking, right, because I can
connecting wires,
connect cables, I'm indispensable. Well, the world moves on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
and it's the same with so many industries, right?
But I think the thing is, look, if you look at, we speak about frictionless environments a lot, and a lot of the time now, when business is trying to grow, the only friction is coming from IT.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that last kind of bastion of friction is just being removed now. Because, what did I say?
No, you said the right word.
I said Bastian, right?
You did.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah,
I just got confused because you were talking about IT people, and I normally refer to them as something else.
Brilliant. Well, I don't swear on this show. I know that you famously do nearly every other week, but I don't. So I think the thing is, it's now that, and you've got to believe that. I mean, look, it's also a lot of the smart IT individuals that are driving this no code and low code movement,
sure.
right? So there's a lot of very smart people that are making it possible for, let's say, less skilled individuals to obviously jump on no code, low code, right? Yeah. And apply a thought process or a strategy, where they can just run with it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think here we go. I think Amit's back.
Wow, sorry about that.
No problem. You're back, Amit. Are you good?
No idea what's going on there.
So what may have happened, guys, is you may not have been able to hear us during those last couple of minutes. But in any case, I was just talking there, Amit. The last story before we kind of do a deep dive is how Google have kind of consolidated chats, meets, docs, all of this kind of thing in Inbox now, and you've got to wonder if they're trying to compete essentially, right? So we've got obviously the Teams of the world, the Zooms, and the Slacks. Now, bearing that in mind, and obviously, we operate in this space every day. We're recording on Zoom. Do you feel Zoom is ripe for kind of acquisition, or should it start developing its own other communicative tools? Because it's kind of sitting out on its own a bit now, and I feel like Skype was essentially a trailblazer, and Skype's quietly gone away, while we've got Teams and we've got Google. Obviously Google Meet is quite popular with a lot of people. So what do you think?
Well, Zoom at the moment are now on my phone.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay,
excellent. Good stuff. So look, let's take a run at this deep dive, Amit.
Yeah.
Just as a real quick reminder, guys. So going back over a month ago now, there was a local study about how trusted certain industries were. And we thought that was very interesting as far as, looking at, the reasons behind their trustworthiness, as it were.
Yep.
Is there any opportunity for change? Is there something that they could do to change people's opinions? And ultimately, why is it? What kind of own thought process? And we've tackled some pretty big industries, right? We've had real estate, we've had banking, we've had recruitment. What was the other one?
Telesales.
So now we're on the last one, and I think financial advisors and the wealth managers. That's what we're managers, by the way, not managers. Wealth managers. So first and foremost, I mean, personal experience in that space.
Yeah, I think personal experience has not been positive.
Right.
I think first and foremost, I think again I can understand why. Where financial advisors, I can understand why they're in that top 5. I think last year they're actually in first position.
Right. Okay.
So it shows that this is consistently an area where people are
concerned,
perhaps not too happy in terms of how it kind of performs and how it kind of portrays itself. But I mean, I continuously still get phone calls. For years and years I didn't. And I think we can be, actually I did, but not in the same way as perhaps you would.
Okay.
Because I think what used to happen is, my business card might have been thrown around from maybe, wealth manager to wealth manager or financial advisor to advisor.
Yeah.
And they'd see that I had an Indian name and therefore I wasn't a target audience, which was great.
Okay.
So never used to get phone calls from anyone other than,
bear in mind, though, I have a more Indian name with you, though. Andrew Thomas.
Andrew Thomas is a very Indian name, especially certain parts of India.
Exactly.
Absolutely. John Thomas, like your famous brother.
That's it. Exactly.
That million in India, right? So, but yeah, I kind of so the phone calls I used to get were from Indian wealth management companies.
Right. Interesting.
But basically saying, look, we've got this great product for NRIs. And I'm like, well, I'm not an NRI. Yes, you are.
Amazing.
I'm not from the UK. And we're like, oh, and that would be the end of it, right?
Right. Okay.
So it was, and in fact, those were maybe one every couple of months.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
But someone, I think, with these databases and cards and things like that get passed around, someone's added maybe UK in brackets somewhere. So now I get harassed.
Right. Okay.
So I get a lot of calls now.
Okay.
I think I've blocked most of them, but I still get a lot. But what about yourself?
Yeah, it's I don't think it was one of those things very early on. I got introduced to, luckily got introduced to a kind of financial wealth manager and kind of had a conversation and that was it, and managed to kind of, sidearm a lot of people. But it was at one point, it was pretty aggressive here. We've spoken about this regionally. They put kind of legislation in place. I think the thing is that, what I've noticed more recently is there's more of a honey trap approach to trying to get you on a conversation. So traditionally it was the wealth manager or financial advisor to ring you directly. Now it seems to be, quite frankly, usually a young lady will either connect on LinkedIn or want to reach out and connect on LinkedIn or call directly, right? And then book an appointment to see, that financial manager. That's what it seems to be. Slight change in tactics, I guess. I'm not getting anything at the moment, so I'm not sure if I've kind of, they've had enough of no.
They probably think you're Indian, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah, UK is United Kerala, not United Kingdom. So yeah, I think I mean that's it. Who knows? I mean, I think that just at the moment, not being as targeted, and it might be because you're on an old list, right? You've been here X number of years, and now there's no interest. But what was interesting, and I think, aside from our personal take, we've obviously worked now from a client perspective with various financial institutes, wealth managers, financial advisors, etc. I think what surprised me was some of the tactics they used around cold calling, right? And I remember a guy telling me that he used to buy the fishbowl at a restaurant where you kind of used to throw your business card in and he'd buy that fishbowl. So he'd go to the hostess and say, hey, listen, give you whatever, $100, couple $100 for all of those business cards, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Is that what happens to those?
Yeah.
Because I never win a
No, exactly. Yeah. Your gift is that you get called. So, and like you're talking about places in DIFC and kind of high-end places that, get your kind of card and think, okay, cool, let them having lunch here. So, that might be the right demographic that I can go after. So I think it was interesting from that, and famously here, there's a lot of networking events, and you usually get people rocking up from financial institutes or insurance companies, right? That was kind of every third person you met was that as well. But I guess I don't know how far their tactics have changed.
You just reminded me about something which I often kind of remember and laugh at, because it was at an event here 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
And I got approached by a guy, and he was, very smartly dressed. So my guard was kind of instantly up, right?
Yeah. What are you selling?
Right. So he come up to me and he's like, hey, I'm such and such person from a company, a famous kind of wealth management company here. I think they've got like a V and a D in their name, maybe not necessarily in that order. Yeah. But, and he said to me, he's like, look, this is what I do. I'm a financial advisor. And he said, have you got a card? I was like, I do, but I'm not going to give it to you.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, the one thing that I value more than anything else is people's privacy. And I know that your card is important, and I would never put that on any list or, anything like that. So if you give me the card, then just trust me that, this will kind of, remain with me. And I was like, what a great guy. I mean, like, fair enough. Like, really, you're different. Gave him my card. So bearing in mind, this must have been maybe 7, 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
Next morning, 9:15, get a phone call. Hi, Amit. I was like, yeah. You met my colleague, this person, at that event last night, and he's asked me to give you a call to see if you want to set up an appointment to talk about life insurance. I was like literally just like, that. And like, this is someone who said, trust me, you will not get a phone call by giving me your card, and I get a phone call less than 24 hours later.
Perfect. Yeah.
Do I still trust him? Am I likely
possibly
to
not
buy an insurance policy? I mean, it was literally, I was like, this is
hours, less than a day.
I mean, at least give it a week.
Yeah.
I knew he was going to call me at some point.
Yeah.
Just not that fast.
No, exactly. Let me at least forget that I met you. That's the best thing. No, I think I mentioned last week that I had someone play the COVID card, which called me up, you know, and it's always suspicious when they call you by your first name anyway. So it's like, hey, Andrew, how you doing? Sorry, who are you? Yeah, no, look, I'm feeling a lot better now. You know, I'm over COVID. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we spoke a couple of months ago. No, we didn't. So it's quite, yeah. Again, it's kind of interesting to see some of those tactics. So I guess the thing is, at the moment, you know, it feels as though that that there hasn't really been any change, right, in their approach. You know, as far as how they're reaching out to individuals, and it seems still very cold, right?
Yeah, look, I think genuinely, I think there's one company I think who we could probably separate from this.
Yeah.
I'm happy to name them because I think we'll name them a bit later when we talk about the process.
Yeah.
But essentially, I think we've got a lot of experience in this industry, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important to point out, you know, to people listening right now. We've worked with wealth management companies, and we've helped them generate leads. Okay, I think first and foremost, the difference is and how we got into some of these companies, and we're talking about a couple of sort of large international businesses as well. So not kind of small kind of, you know, 3 or 4 man shop people. These are you know, significantly
decent outfits,
companies, right?
Yeah.
Where this is, where I think we had an impact is we went in and we spoke to them and said, look, how do you generate leads right now? And they said, have a look. You know, when we're in their office, we can see people hammering their phones. And they said, look, it's the role of those people out there to then create meetings for, you know, the people they represent.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay. And so what, all of those inquiries are cold? Yes.
Yeah.
So where do you get the data from? Well,
restaurants.
Funnily enough, I didn't say but fishbowl in a restaurant down the road. But,
exactly.
But now I know that. But essentially, it was like it's like, you know, we've got different data sources and blah blah blah, right? Networking events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So I was like, every single phone call is therefore cold. I'm like, yeah. I was like, okay, how successful is that? Oh, you know, it's good. Everyone's got targets. And it very much felt like that old, you know, sweatshop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The old boiler room.
The boiler room.
Ringing
exactly,
a bell.
right?
Like, yeah.
You know, where it's like, if you make 200 phone calls, then you're going to get 5 meetings out of it.
Of course. Yeah.
And it was very much kind of that mentality that you've got to be on the phone. You've got to be aggressive.
Yeah.
You've got to do that. And I remember saying to actually, it was the MD of a company. I was like, what about if people came to you, right? Rather than you going to them and trying to sell them something. What about if they actually picked up the phone or gave you their details and said, can you get somebody to call me? And he's like, and he said, look, that doesn't happen in our industry.
Yeah.
I was like, but it should, right? Because we're all kind of geared towards thinking that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've spoken about the funnel approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. We're all geared towards, you know, researching and empowering ourselves and all of that kind of stuff. And essentially, when we're ready to have a conversation with someone, we're confident enough to fill out a form or pick up the phone and say, hey, can somebody contact me?
Yeah.
And so we did explain this. And look, eventually we ended up getting, with this first company, we ended up signing a deal with them.
That's right, yeah.
Actually integrated HubSpot into the whole equation as well, because we said, look, if you don't understand the data or the needs for requirements of someone, it's going to be very difficult for you to, to kind of engage with them. But ultimately, what we're going to do, you guys carry on doing what you're doing. Yeah. What we're going to do is supplement that with basically a list of people who are actually interested in receiving a phone call. And you guys figure out the impact of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember what happened?
Yeah, I did. No, I mean, the close ratio was far better on the ones that we were providing to them, right? From memory. And there was also one of the things that always stands out is they started getting different audiences and people they'd never spoken to before. So it was kind of like the wives. It was like the wife wants to talk about, if we were running a campaign around, educational kind of allowance, for your kids, basically, it was the wife that would kind of reach out, and they never had them as a target audience demographic, whatever. Yeah. It was,
And it was exactly that. It was, but what it was all based and driven on education.
Yes.
Right. So the whole campaign was
calculators.
Understand what you're going to need.
Yeah.
How do you calculate how much money you're going to need at retirement?
That's right. Yeah.
What steps do you need to take to make sure you get there?
Yeah.
How do you safeguard your kids, education fund and make sure that you can support them while supporting yourself?
Yeah.
It was very much kind of how to
yeah.
That type of content. There was videos involved. There was a whole load of stuff, but it was all driven around education, like nothing else. No sales tactics.
Yeah.
No scaremongering. It was very much a case of, look, you should protect your life because of this reason, and that reason, right? Or you should start saving this much money because of that reason.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what we saw very quickly is people were much more receptive to that.
Yeah, totally.
So they were engaging with the content. They were filling out forms and saying, please send me more information. And like what you said, the conversion rates were significantly higher.
You remember the challenge that I remember as well that we had, right, with this? I don't know if you remember. So the advisors themselves, even though we sat them down and we said, listen, these people are going through a journey, they're educating themselves. As soon as they filled a form, hey, on the phone.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to stop them, in that pattern, right?
Yeah, and that was it, because suddenly if you see a phone number and a natural impulse is I've got to phone it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Whereas again, we would try that funnel approach is, look, if people are at the top of funnel, let them sit there for a bit.
Exactly.
Nurture them.
Yeah.
Send them more information. Send them another video.
Yeah.
Let them feel comfortable in terms of what they're researching and how they want to kind of get to that point.
Yeah.
And when they get to that point, they're going to reach out to you because you're the one that's been educating them.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of these guys are petrified that they won't get that phone call. So look, and I think it comes down to, again, educating people within the industry, right?
And also the sales managers. That's the other thing, right? Yeah. So it's not just that financial advisor, but it's also the individual above them who may be saying, listen, you've got to have X number of meetings, you've got to have X number of calls. No, right? Because that's where that pressure is coming from as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the KPIs and the targets are potentially flawed.
Yes.
Again, this comes down to the fact that a lot of these guys don't earn a basic salary, right?
No, that's right. Yeah.
Or a very small basic salary.
Yeah.
Their income is driven by selling product.
Yeah.
And, and I think there's fundamental challenges like all the other industries we've spoken about. When you're incentivized, like real estate, you've got to sell to live, right?
Yeah.
The same happens here. And if you're not selling policies, you're not generating revenue.
No.
There's a problem there.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, but it does, you're right. It goes down to the point of, if you don't have the luxury of time, then it's very difficult for you to trust the process. Right. And I think that luxury of time can be broken into, look, there's something that's going on there. I know that lead isn't quite ready now, but when they're ready, I'm going to close it by spending only a fraction of the time on it than I typically would.
Yeah.
But that's a very kind of difficult mentality to kind of grasp unless you see it play out, and unless you've got 100 of these and you see how it really works, it's very difficult for people to trust. And I think, and again, it's partly because of they're not educated in terms of that process, and they know a certain way of operating and being, say, successful.
Yeah.
I think what we spend a lot of our time with when we're talking to clients is, what if you can make the same amount of money by spending less than half the time?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
If you less than half the effort. Yeah. What if, instead of spending 5 hours on a prospect, you spend 2 hours on a prospect and actually sold the same, if not more?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's very difficult for people to get that if they haven't seen it in action themselves.
Yeah, and they're under constant pressure because the fear is probably that by the time they've, worked through this process, they look back and think, oh, well, if I'd, had 100 calls in that 2-week period, perhaps I would have done better than I am now, right? Yeah. So yeah, you're right, that education piece. How do you think the kind of aggregators have kind of moved into this space? Because obviously previously, a lot of this was that, approach where it was kind of like outbound, but obviously I feel like they've, almost kind of snatched that piece up, right? Where people are doing their research. Not only they're doing their research and they're finding someone, but they're finding comparative data as well.
I think it's the data they find, because I think one of the challenges is in this industry actually isn't just for guys who are selling the policies. In fact, a lot of these guys are stand-up guys. You've got friends who are in the industry. I've got friends in the industry.
Yeah.
Great guys.
Solid, yeah.
Right.
Professional, highly qualified.
Right. But is it their fault that the people who are issuing the policies are basically creating and incentivizing them to sell those policies, which basically means that maybe the first 2 years of a life insurance policy, that money you're paying, or the first year or 2 years of your savings plan actually isn't going into the plan. It's going to pay off the guy who's just sold it to you.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's also part of the challenge. And there's been a whole load of legislation that's clamping down on this, where I think, especially in the UK, where I think they've been now launched or about to launch, if you buy a policy, they've got to disclose how much the agent is earning out of it.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
But which is a game changer, because now it's down to the agent to perhaps say, look, my fees are going to be X.
Yeah.
Just so you're aware.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to put down $10,000 in the first 2 years. And by the way, I get all of that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a very difficult conversation to have. Right.
Yeah.
But this is changing. And so then when you move over to the aggregators, I think that potentially becomes really interesting, because that also might take people more to that D2C model.
Yeah.
Especially if the aggregators aren't now earning a commission, maybe they're earning a fixed referral fee.
Yeah.
You know, a few dollars basically for generating a lead.
Have a conversation over here. Yeah.
Right. But essentially it should really start to kind of clean up that side of the industry. And where that kind of leaves financial advice, I'm not sure. But the point is, again, let's go back to the conversation we had about IT. They have to innovate, right? They have to be different.
And look, with that in mind, and we've spoken a bit about this in some of the other industries, I mean, how relevant do you think these guys are going to be for kind of our kids? You know, are they going to be thinking about pensions? Are they going to be thinking about, or are they going to be putting their money in crypto? Or are they going to be firing up a little, you know, I mean, famously, obviously, side gigs, right? Gigging. I mean, you've got a lot of people that have got 4 or 5 side gigs in addition to their main role, or kind of little, you know, business on the side. And because it's so easy, as we said, to kind of do that. I mean, how relevant are they going to be, right?
Yeah,
really.
I'd be totally surprised if they ever have a conversation with
financial advisor,
right?
Yeah,
just look how it's changing.
Yeah.
That said, I think Shane and my youngest, so at the moment, professional footballer is number 1 on the list.
Okay.
Number 2 is pediatrician.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Number 3 is running Nexa.
Right. Okay.
And number 4 is being my financial advisor.
Okay.
So she's obviously heard the term somewhere, because she came up to me. She's like, in case, you know, I'm not good enough at football, I'm not clever enough to be a doctor, and you know, you don't let me run Nexa.
Right.
Can I be your financial advisor? And I was like, fine. I mean, like, literally.
The last 2 are slightly linked.
But but you're going to have to be well at school. So, so I mean, I don't know. Look, at the thing is, and again, I potentially this is because of where we are. We know that there's a lot of financial advisors out here. Dubai is seen as a place where people have a lot of disposable income, and because you don't see as many in the UK.
No.
You see a lot in the States.
Yes, big in the States.
Like similar kind of models. You can't go to a networking event without at least 2 guys approaching you. Typically, they're from the same organization.
Right.
It's so funny. I mean, like, you know, I went to an event in New York, and the guy was like, "Hi, I'm from Northwestern Mutual." And I'm like, "Great." And he's like, "We're an old company, 140 years old." And, you know, I was like, "Okay, look, I'm kind of from the UK and I live in Dubai." But I was like, by the way, I was like, your colleague came and spoke to me earlier. And he's like, "Oh, who's that?" I was like, "That guy over there." It's like, "Oh." And I was like, "Do you know him?" "No." "Have you never seen him?" "No." "You guys work for the same company." And so I think that's the problem in the States. It's so disjointed in terms of, okay, look, everyone's you know, everyone's essentially a kind of, you know,
target
contracted worker. But they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of just a bit of a land grab. But, interesting.
Perfect. So, I mean, look, what do we think then, as far as, you know, ripe for opportunity, you know, in that kind of COVID space now? We understand people are looking for more things, and, you know, what do we think? Where does the opportunities lie? So if we're thinking that, you know, our children are not going to be looking at this, is it as you mentioned there, you kind of touched upon it, is it a direct to consumer model? Is it where these policy holders kind of circumnavigate that whole piece, and you have, I don't know, a chat bot that takes you through, you know, do you agree to this? Do you agree to this? Are you aware of this risk? Are you aware of this risk? Tick, 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 tick. And then is it a fully automated process? What do you think?
It could be. I think the direct to consumer piece is totally valid in this scenario. Except when you look back at it,
yeah,
these are the guys that have basically created the industry that we don't trust, right?
Yes.
Because
okay.
Financial advisors can't exist without you know, these large companies offering these policies, right? So the way I'd look at it is perhaps whether it's a hybrid model. Is there a role for financial advisors in the future? I think so, but not the way it is now. Now, I think if you had somebody who says, hey, this is a policy that I'd recommend for you, this is how much I'm going to make out of it, and this is over which term I'm going to be making that money.
Okay.
Right. And here's some real kind of education, and here's the pitfalls, and here's all of that kind of stuff. And here's the annual fees. And by the way, 2 years down the line, your repayments may get doubled if these investments don't work out.
Yeah.
Okay, now I know what I'm getting myself into, right? Fully. So I think that key is transparency of information.
Okay.
Right. So if I look at the last policy I bought off a financial advisor, who, by the way, you know, was, you know, in brackets, is still a friend of mine.
Yeah.
I mean, what I did is made him quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what happened is 2 to 3 years down the line, I got a letter saying, by the way, your monthly repayments of $250 has now gone to $900 as of next month, because there's a shortfall in you know what we suspected the investment would be. And I was like, and literally, or you can change your policy and reduce all the benefits that you signed up for.
Amazing.
You know, so and I didn't have any of that transparency.
No.
I didn't have any of that information to hand. You know, and you know, when I obviously speak to a guy and say, look, do you know what's happened here? Oh, you know, this is terrible, but you should know this. You've been doing this for 25 years, right? And so, you know, again, so if I know what I'm dealing with, happy to deal with it. If I'm not, then I won't. And I think, you know, that's what's going to happen here in this industry, right?
I feel like these guys have to evolve in what they have to offer. Okay. So I feel almost like a financial advisor has to be just aware of the world that we live in now, where we can download an app and buy crypto, where we can trade currencies, where we can buy commodities. I feel like there's still a gap, right, for a genuine financial advisor, right? So I feel like that's where potentially this can go, where, you know, that organization or body or whatever is a group of professionals that can genuinely offer you financial advice.
And like, I think going back to that original point, from, you know, the research I've done, and I look into this industry every now and then, like I said, there's a company who seems to be doing it right.
Yes.
And that's AES. So AES International.
Yeah.
I think it's a great example, really driven by education. You go on their website and it's videos and it's podcasts and it's real content you can download.
Yeah.
But people in the market talk about how these guys are saying, look, make sure you set up your own, you know, stock portfolio.
Yeah.
Your, you know, your crypto portfolio, if you kind of feel like that's important to you. And the second, again, if I had a financial advisor who came and said to me, look, by the way, don't spend more than this on life insurance. But do this, and this, where you know full well they're not going to earn anything out. I'm going to trust that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think it is. So you're right. I think it is. They have to fully evolve.
Yeah.
I think they need to, you know, pay respect to the funnel.
Yeah.
Because if they don't respect the funnel and I don't know, consumer mindset that goes along with that, then that is always going to be disjointed. And like I said, they're selling a product everyone needs.
Yes.
This is the
facts, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the real fact that everyone in the world needs this product to protect their loved ones.
Yeah.
They've just made such a bad go of it where, I mean, if you look at the stats, I think it's something like only 5% of people in this country are insured, right? That's because of the people selling them insurance.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think a big reason for that. And the second part of that is education. But again, that comes down to.
Yeah. I also think back to what we spoke about we've spoken about it previously, where the value of data, where you've got organizations that you have to give them your data to work with them. So the value of that data is not held in high regard. I almost feel like that was sometimes with insurance, where in the past it's been, you have to get it.
Yeah.
So why try? I mean, if you look at the car insurance space, I'd say that what's quite interesting, even though just by way of kind of change and adapting to the current environment, there's a whole host of car insurance companies now based in the UK that are offering insurance based on pay per kilometer. Right. Yeah. They've thought about it. Yeah. It's kind of not, listen, we know you need insurance, so how can we differentiate ourselves? So I think that's interesting as well. Yeah.
No, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Hack of the week.
Yep, you got one?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. So look, guys, that kind of brings us to the end of our series. We're going to be starting up a new series next week. But obviously, before we say goodbye, I've got a couple of hacks of the week this week.
Okay.
Try to do something that is for everyone, and then one that's just for the iPhone users out there. So I'll start with the first one, which is Jitter .video.
Okay.
JITTER.video. Animation platform. So very cool. If you want to kind of go out there and start animating, creating some animation videos, nice platform for this. As always, it's kind of relatively cost effective. So you can kind of generate quick one-off projects, GIFs, video exports, etc. For like free. And then you can charge about $9 a month. So you can do HD, you've got support on there, cancel anytime, all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. I think kind of check it out, have a look. It's that basic GIF animation. Just want to drop something into a presentation or just kind of make, enlighten it a bit more, get a look. So that's jitter.video.
Okay.
And the other one is specifically for iPhone users, a bit of a hack. So their latest iOS update, if you are a note taker, so I don't know if anyone out there is still kind of taking notes. The new ability on notes is you can take a picture of notes, select the text, and it will automatically, OCR job into text.
Okay, nice.
So if you're kind of still out there taking notes, you can quickly kind of drag that across the data. So yeah, another update from iOS, just if you're unaware of it.
Good stuff. So I think Andrew will send an email out to everyone about the next series.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Kick off next week.
Yeah. I think also, look, on the back of what you said there, we're definitely going to start some merch, Respect the Funnel. So I think I feel like a big fist with a funnel on it. I think that's what I'm thinking from a logo perspective.
Mate, Netflix are selling merch now.
Netflix
have got into the merch game.
So, oh, really?
So now, like Stranger Things, if you want a Stranger Things t-shirt or you want, whatever it is, there's a whole store on Netflix, which is interesting because people are saying that means they're panicking because subscriber revenue is declining, or it just might mean that they say, look, we've got so many million people out there watching our programs.
Yeah.
If a fraction of them start buying t-shirts and caps and all that kind of stuff, we can make even more money. So
interesting on the back of that, and I used to use Evernote.
Right.
I think, we've been spoken about that probably in the past, a note-taking application, very similar to Notes. But they famously make, I think, something like 70% of their revenue from notebooks, binders, leather-bound.
Really?
So it's kind of their actual revenue stream is not from the app. It's from business users like ourselves that they then promote their products to. Wow. So I think that's smart. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, about Netflix kind of expanding on what they're offering.
What we're going to do.
Yeah.
But they've gone down basically the Disney route, right?
Yeah. Selling. Well, I mean, I guess if you've got exclusive rights to, Stranger Things is from Netflix. Yeah. It's a Netflix original, right? Yeah. So why not? There's so many kind of shows now that originated from Netflix.
Yeah. So it's great. I mean, like instead of licensing those deals out and somebody else is making that money.
Just jump on there. You can do it, Excellent.
Awesome.
In other news, Stranger Things, the new series is coming out soon. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you very much again for listening, watching, etc. Appreciate you joining us. We've had some people from day one, which is phenomenal. Kind of just unbelievable. I admit that they can put up with us for this long. Very impressed. And obviously we get new faces every week, everywhere as well. So keen to keep it running. So good stuff. All right.
Great.
Have a great week.
You too.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.